Okay, thank you, Dr. Emmanuel. Let me share my slides since we don't have much time. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the attendees, and thank you, the organizers of this conference, for giving me an opportunity to present my work. Before I start my presentation, I just want to highlight that it has been a while since I did this study. In the past months or maybe years, I have been facing a number of challenges. So I was actually not active. So this is my first time to be really active. So I'll go through the research that I did in 2021. So we looked at what you call indigenous philanthropic organizations in African countries. So the title is presented towards understanding African philanthropy and philanthropic organizations. So this study focused on the three countries, DRC, Malawi, and Namibia. So the main purpose of the study was to develop knowledge of the indigenous philanthropic organizations that are in Malawi, Namibia, and DRC. But I also need to mention that it has been difficult. It was difficult to actually get in touch with these organizations. So why did we need to do this? Because we found that there was need for us to map up these indigenous philanthropic organizations so that we know who is in which country and what are they doing. That's what we wanted to know. So the objectives were very clear. We wanted to first identify the philanthropic categories that tend to be dominant in Africa. So when we look in those countries, we wanted to know like which category is dominant, and also to determine the complexity with regard to registration of those indigenous philanthropic organizations in their respective countries. The other thing that we wanted to know was also to understand their direction, if they have a direction, and also their decision-making process, like who is involved in decision-making. And also, we sought to determine the financial capacity of those organizations. The other objective was to understand how those organizations give out funds, and also the major activities that they fund, and also the key groups that receive their financial support. That's what we wanted to know as well. And then we also wanted to determine the current donor interest, like do we have specific areas that tend to be more sponsored at the moment? That's what we wanted to check. So as a research problem, we realized that there was lack of knowledge regarding indigenous philanthropic organizations and what they do. So even myself, when I did this research, it was quite difficult, even with the research assistant that I managed to work with. For us to find these organizations was a challenge. Most of them are smaller organizations. They don't have even a website. So in order, now when you try now to find them, like to know these organizations, some of them, they are church-based. So they are small, they don't have a website, but they are doing a lot of groundwork. So this is something that we said we want to know from an African philanthropic perspective. The way that we do our philanthropy in Africa is not really the same across when we compare with other regions or continents. Ours, it could be small but significant. So it depends on how we look at it. So this is what we realize. There's a lot of work that is done on the ground, but these organizations are very difficult to find or actually to get them answer the questionnaires that you give them. It's very difficult. Some of them, they even don't want their work to be known. So those are some of the challenges that we are still facing. But why addressing this issue? Because most importantly, if we can map up them, if we can know them and what they do, it can also help potential beneficiaries to easily check, right? When they want to connect or to to find organizations that can meet their needs. They know where to go. And then the organization themselves, it will also be easier for them to raise funds when we know who they are and what they do. So that is something that is very important that we said we need to know this organization. It's important for them as well. And the other issue there is the issue of moral hazard. So that is something that may be actually be dealt with or minimized when it comes to our indigenous philanthropic organizations. So there is an argument that is there that says when it comes to these non-African donor, non-African funders or donors, when they give what they give to us, right? Sometimes they exert a strong influence on how us as Africans we should use those those donations, or maybe we should operate. So that philanthropic or that donation or philanthropic gesture that comes with a hidden agenda is not really sustainable. So these are the moral hazards that we are talking about. Some of them, like now, they are talking about trying to influence the regime change, but we don't go there. But they have specific, they may actually have specific agendas. So if we promote our own philanthropic organizations and then we promote them, if they can work well, we will be able also not to rely on foreign funding. And in a way, we can also minimize those other conditions that come with this, some of these donations. Then also, there is also an issue of improving effectiveness. So there's an argument that is there also in the literature that says these African philanthropic organizations, when we compare them with non-African philanthropic organizations, we realize that they tend to know better the communities and what they need. So the methodology, we applied a quantitative approach where a questionnaire was developed. So it was a fully structured questionnaire. The data was analyzed using quantitative methods, and it was a cross-sectional research design because data was collected at one point in time. And as for the target population or the unit of analysis, we focused on indigenous philanthropic organizations. And then the sampling technique, we used purposely. So we wanted only those ones. So we had to find them first on the internet and then we approached them. Then the sample size, as you can see there, even though we hoped for more, but we only managed to have 59 in Malawi, 21 in Namibia, 35 in DRC, which is, which I can say a major weakness of this study. Then as for the results, Dr. Emmanuel, please tell me the time as well so that I can know how many minutes are left.
Very well. You still have time, about 8 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So as for the results, so we looked at a number of things that we wanted to know regarding this philanthropic organization. So to know who they are, we did this by trying to do a desktop analysis where we search on the website. Some of them, with my research assistants, they were able also to get referrals to say there is also another philanthropic organization there. That's how we actually identify those that we surveyed. But even though we identified slightly more than what we have here, some of them, some of them did not respond to our questionnaires. Even my research assistants tried their level best to get the responses, but they didn't. So these are the results. So when it comes to philanthropic categories, we realize that in Malawi, the dominant categories there were charitable, trust, and then community foundations and independent foundations, as you can see there. I'm not going through, no, I'm not going to go into detail because of time, but what we have there is just philanthropic infrastructure support organization. So that is an abbreviation. It stands for philanthropic infrastructure support organization. So these are still less in all these countries that we surveyed. As you can see there, yes, in Namibia, it's slightly higher than in Malawi, but they are still lesser. But we have community foundations and charitable trusts and then others that are also dominant in Namibia. Then when it comes to DRC, we see again they indicated that other, and then we have charitable trusts, and then we have those philanthropic infrastructure, philanthropic infrastructure support organizations, PISO. So we see that in DRC, we actually have slightly more compared to the other two countries. So in terms of complexity, we also wanted to know how complex it is for this organization to get registered. So we see that in Malawi, it was difficult to tell whether it is or difficult, as you can see there. On the side with ease, on the side with the difficult, we have slightly almost the same, even though it's slightly different. But the majority says it's neither easy or difficult. But one thing that we realize that all of them, they have indicated, or a majority, they have indicated that the registration will be complete within 4 months, as you can see there. Then we see the same picture there in Namibia. The majority says it's complete within 4 months. And then we still see again, the majority of organizations are indicating that it's neither easy or difficult, but we see that we also have the same number of those who are saying difficult and those who are saying it is. So again, there was no clear cut here. Then when it comes to DRC, we see that we have a number of them that says it is when we compare with those that says it's difficult, right? So that's what we see. And we see again, the majority that say it occurs within 4 months from the time that we started the registration process. Then the other issue that we wanted to know was, do these organizations have a vision? Do they have a mission? So we see that the majority of those organizations, they actually have a vision and also a mission. And then we also wanted to know, okay, who is involved in decision making? So there are key decisions that are involved there. So we wanted to know, like, who are involved when they make those charity policy decisions. So we see that in Malawi, the top 3 were the directors, founders, and the board. Then in Namibia, we have the top 3 there were the board, and then we also have here a committee. So this is a committee with one member of the organization. So then we have the program manager also involved there, like in the top 3 were involved. Again, I'm not going to comment about the vision and mission. The majority of them, they said they have. But there were a few organizations without a mission and also without a vision. Then so this is the Malawi. Am I going backwards? So this is the summary. So this is the summary of everything that I have said so far concerning the decision making. So I'm not going again to time to go through each, but just take note of what I have highlighted there to say these are the 2 groups that are mainly involved. These are the major groups that are mainly involved in each country when it comes to the decision. When they make a policy decision, who is involved, right? So we see that in DRC and in Malawi, the top 2, they are the board and also the founder are involved. But in Namibia, it's indicated that the program managers also get involved a lot. Then the other thing that we wanted to know were the finances. So the finances, generally speaking, we realize that the majority are actually suffering in terms of their financial capacity. They don't have bigger finances, and that is also reflected in their expenditure. They are not able to spend a lot. So as we can see from those 2 figures, we have the majority of organizations that have low revenue and that we also low annual expenditure. So they can't spend what they don't have. So then we look again to in Malawi, where do they get the funds? How do they mobilize the funds? So in Malawi, we see that the top there is the donors the grants, and the fundraising. Those are the top three. Sorry, but we have a bit of income generation, which is a good indicator because income generation is very good for sustainability. Then when it comes to Namibia, again, we see that this is the same. So I'm not going to repeat the same picture. In most of these countries, the three of them, they have, most of them, they have low revenue, they have low expenditure. Then when it comes to where they get funds, again, we still hear the donors are on top. Fundraising is also part of the key source of funds, and then the grant. We see the same when it comes to DRC here in this next slide. Right. So in DRC, it's slightly the same. We now have member contribution is actually the dominant there, and then grants and income generation. So income generation in DRC is relatively higher when we compare with the other two. But what is also common across these three countries that the contribution that is coming from the government is very minor. So it's actually the lowest source of funds. So I summarize. So this is the summary. I have already talked about how the funds and then where they get the funds. So here we're going to talk about how they communicate, right? How do they communicate the funds? So we realize that most organizations in Malawi and DRC use the head hunting for relevant partners, followed by a call for proposals. So they do that, they make an advert in the media. So when they want to score, when they want a potential beneficiary, when they see that, then they can apply, and then the process is initiated. Then in Namibia, most organizations indicated that it's none of what we have specified in the questionnaire, but we also see that on second, there was call for proposals through advertising. Then the least used method was call for proposals on the website. So this again goes in line with most organizations, they don't have websites. And then in the countries, most organizations accepted first for support through written proposal. So when you want support, you write a proposal, and then that proposal will be evaluated by a board or a management committee. Some considered direct conduct, where the organization can talk to underprivileged communities, so that they actually approach those underprivileged communities, then they see how they can develop them. Then when it comes to the issue of how they spend money, so as you can see there, we see that the majority in Malawi, or the major activities that are being supported in Malawi, we see that there's education, there's health, there's humanitarian, child protection, agriculture. So those are the key that are being supported. Then let's check the other country, which is still in Malawi. As they support those activities, how do they do that? How do they make payment? How do they support them? So most of them, they say it's direct payment. They pay directly. And also, they can use scholarships as the second means. And then collaborations was also part of that. And then the recipients, when it comes to the recipients, the groups that receive the majority of these funds, we see that in Malawi, it's children, women, orphans, and youth. Then in Namibia, we also see again education, humanitarian, health, and child protection, almost the same as Malawi, are the major activities that are being supported. And then when it comes to payment, how do they pay? We see that there's direct payment, there's also collaboration. And then the main groups that receive funds, we have children, orphans, youth, and women. So now let's compare with the DRC. Now, something that is different here with the DRC, we have gender promotion on top. So the other two, we don't have that. So gender promotion is supported a lot in DRC, and then we have health, child protection, and agriculture. Then when it comes again, DRC is slightly different from the other two. Here, when it comes to instruments that they use to give money, they have foundation grants that they use. Collaborations is also there, direct payments on the table. And then who is supported the most? Women, youth, children, and orphans. So I'm not going to go through the summary, but that's what we have seen there in the interest of time.
Yeah, so if you can start winding, yeah. Thank you.
Yes. All right. So let's go quickly to the recommendation. So based on what I have done, so we came up with this recommendation that the African governments should play a major role in the philanthropic sector, especially when it comes to the issue of registration. It doesn't make sense to make it a bit tighter. So they should find a way to make it easier for this organization to register. Then the other thing is that there is a need for more philanthropic infrastructure support organizations, which are the PISO, because we have seen that we still have very few of them. So we need them. They are a very important platform. They create a very good link with the other, like they make sure that they create a network. They are important for the network of all the philanthropic organizations, like what CAPS is doing. So that is something that we need. We need more of those. Then promoting corporate foundations in African countries. So this is important in the view that what we have seen is that most of these organizations, they struggle in terms of financing. They can't really raise enough funds to support their funding, their philanthropic activities. So if we promote corporate foundations, we know that their sources of funds will be based on a certain business that is going on. So they get funds from there. Then in view of smaller annual revenue and expenditures, it is important to develop and enhance collaboration. So we have seen that some of these organizations already, they have indicated the issue of collaboration. So collaborations are important, but now what we need more is collaborations among the philanthropic organizations. So when they want to sponsor something, it's important for them to come together. If they have the same interest, then they can join hands and do it together. Philanthropic organizations should pay attention to sustainability of the support they provide. So especially when they support agriculture and entrepreneurship, they need to make sure that there's a clear follow-up to make sure that the funds that have been provided to the beneficiaries were used as intended, and that those beneficiaries, they become sustainable. It doesn't make sense to continuously support the same person again and again. Then just to wrap up, the last recommendation that I have here, it is important that these philanthropic organizations have reserves. So these reserves will help them in terms of emergence, like what we've seen with the COVID-19. Then they can, instead of closing their philanthropic activities, they can still maybe rely on those reserves to make sure that the business is sustained maybe for some months before the things get worse. Then for sustainability purpose, philanthropic organizations also consider income generation. So income generation, source of funds, is very important. There are organizations that are doing that already. They have some activities that can help them to get funds, and then they can also channel those funds to their beneficiaries. While many philanthropic organizations tend to support education, health, child protection, and agriculture, as we saw on those graphs, it is vital also to consider environmental issues, right? So we see that things such as environment, especially now with the climate change, threat for climate change, they need more of funding. So we still need more of funds on that area. Thank you.